You're watching the award-winning GHS-TV, a nationally recognized student television station.
Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of GHS-TV's award-winning talk show, Crosstalk. I'm your host, Sara Mayers. Each week in this time slot, we take a look at different issues, personalities, and events that affect you and our community. We are weeks away from one of the most heated and talked about elections in U.S. history. On November 8th, Americans will head to the polls to elect the next President of the United States. Whatever the outcome, it will affect us for years to come. On this week's show, we'll discuss how millennials are impacting the race with representatives from two local political groups. You'll also hear what Germantown High School students are learning about for the election and how GHS-TV is planning to cover the historic race. But first, our local election leaders ready for the big day? Here to talk more about that is Sara Mayers, Chairman of the Shelby County Election Commission. Mr. Myers, thank you for being on the Crosstalk set today.
Sarah, thank you for having me.
Well, early voting starts on October 19th. What preparations have been taking place?
So we've been preparing the sites, been preparing the ballots, been preparing our people, all to begin voting on the 19th.
What's the difference between early voting and just voting on November 8th?
Really none. It's just an opportunity to potentially vote at a more convenient time or location.
Well, when people think about voting, they think about the long lines and the time that it takes. What can voters do to make sure that they can vote quickly?
So by being prepared, if they'll look at the ballot in advance, and they can get a copy of the ballot by going to shelbyvote.com or gotnvote.com and pull up their ballot and look at the ballot themselves so that they're prepared to cast their ballot as they run through their choices. It's going to be particularly true in this election when there are potential to have referendums, which are a little longer pieces of information that the voters have to read and make decisions on during their election process.
Tell us more about the process for going to vote.
So the first thing you need to do is make sure that you're registered, and you can double check your registration status again by going to shelbyvote.com, typing in your address and name, and verifying that you're eligible to vote. Having done that, all you then need is to have a photo ID to present either at an early voting site or an election day at the precinct that you're assigned to.
Well, in the age of hacking, how are you making sure that all votes are secure?
So the first thing we do is we're not connected to the internet. The voting tabulation equipment is not connected to the internet, so we're less susceptible to any kind of traditional type of hacking that way. We also have various safeguards in place to make sure that we're not hacked, which I'm not really free to discuss.
Well, what other complications do you come across during the voting time?
Mostly voter confusion. People are sometimes confused about where they vote or who they can vote for. People don't realize who haven't voted or participated in some period of time that the representatives that represent them may have changed due to redistricting or other reasons, and so they're just less prepared, which then slows down the process because they think they're coming to vote for a single person or a particular issue that they may not be eligible to do.
How do you ensure that there is no voter fraud?
So there's a number of different things that we do. I mean, one is we try to keep very tight controls over our voter registration lists in accordance with law. The second thing we do is we try to make sure that we follow the law with regard to the identification of the voter when they present. And that's usually done through the photo ID. Those are really the primary ways that we do that. We also keep a track of the numbers so that we know how many people are eligible to vote in a particular precinct versus how many people did vote. And I'm pleased to report we don't have more people voting than we have registered.
Well, this could be our last election using the current voting machines that we use. What can we expect to see in 2020?
So in 2020, we'll likely have or be very close to having new voting machines, and we'll have to see what the technology will allow at that point. Hopefully we'll have some kind of a verified paper audit trail so that we can add that as a security feature to the election process.
What are some of the criticisms you get from the current voting machines?
People are concerned that when they press to make their selection, that another candidate, an X comes up by another candidate. Typically that's for one of two reasons. One, sometimes the voter doesn't press in the right location. Sometimes it has to do with the women in a little bit longer fingernails. They end up pressing the wrong location. Occasionally we'll have a machine that is out of calibration. But in either of those situations, if they'll report that as an issue, we'll send machine technicians to verify that the machine is calibrated or not. If it's not calibrated, we'll take that machine out of service and replace it.
Well, being the chairman of the Shelby County Election Commission is not your year-round job. How did you get involved?
So I volunteered in the early 90s to be a poll watcher, and got to be very interested in the process, realized how important it was to participate in the process, both as a voter and at that point as a poll watcher. I later then asked to work for the Election Commission, and I worked as an inspector for about 15 years. Learned a lot about the election process and kind of the inside view, if you will, of the process, and really liked that. And then one year, one of my party state senators asked me if I wanted to be an election commissioner, and I said, absolutely.
Why did you feel that it was important to get involved?
Well, I think it's one of the most important functions that we participate in as Americans, and that's our right to vote, to select our representatives. I think it's critical that process be as free from error or doubt as humanly possible. And so my goal has always been to try to promote the fairness of the process and its transparency.
Well, Mr. Myers, thank you for being here today and for talking about the Election Commission.
Thank you for having me, Sarah. I appreciate it very much.
We have to take a short break. When we come back, we'll explore the impact millennials have done on the election so far. Stay tuned.
I'm Anne. I'm a scientist.
Recycling takes a team.
Why don't you let me and me help you out?
Everyone plays a part. Don't trash
I love taking stuff apart and building new things out of it.
what could be treasure.
Pal's my most advanced android. This is awesome. You haven't seen anything yet.
Give your cardboard box another life. Recycle.
What are you, superheroes?
Just four brothers who hate bullies and love this city.
Whoa!
Gear up, guys.
You're watching the award-winning GHS-TV, a nationally recognized student television station.
Welcome back to this week's edition of Crosstalk. I'm Sara Mayers. Joining us now to talk about the impact young people are having on the election is Louis Folk, president of the University of Memphis College Republicans Club, and Gregory Grant, vice president of the Greater Memphis Democratic Club. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Mr. Folk, tell us about the University of Memphis College Republicans in action.
Yeah, thank you for asking me. So the University of Memphis College Republicans is a conservative organization on campus. Our goal is to unite liberty-minded students by promoting a message of freedom, small government, strong military, and free market principles. So basically what we do is we invite really neat speakers. We actually have one this afternoon. But basically what our goal is to unite students on campus. And so whether you kind of feel like you're a libertarian or you're, a hardcore GOP, student, basically we want to capture these students into our club and to promote our message of freedom and have an appealing message for them.
How did you get involved?
So that's interesting. So I'm with the Emerging Leaders on campus, and so that's a scholarship program that encourages, active involvement in clubs. And so, I'm very interested in politics. I've always been. I mean, my major is international studies, and so basically I was looking for a club that kind of represented my values. And so I was looking, and I saw that we had a Republican club on campus, but I saw there were a lot of problems with it. I kind of wanted to get it re-going and kind of change it up a little bit. So me and the former president, what we did is we got super involved and we kind of changed up the club and, promoted speakers, events, that kind of thing. So basically we're a thriving club right now at the university. So,
Mr. Grant, tell us about the Greater Memphis Democratic Club.
Well, the Greater Memphis Democratic Club is affiliated with the Shelby County Democratic Club. There are about 5 different clubs over the city, and 3 of those clubs are certified to work directly with the Democratic Party locally, with the connection to the state party and the national party. Our club has been in existence for more than 20 years, and we started this political process a long time ago, back in 1974, when I first got involved in politics, and have been working with campaigns since that particular time. And then we just decided to put structure to it, and that's where we are today.
Why was that something that you wanted to get involved in?
Because I knew we needed an organized effort in order to turn the vote out. Our main objective is to get Democrats elected in Shelby County. We do that in conjunction with the local party. But we go a little further. We have a transportation division for individuals who may not have a way to the polls. During the early voting cycle, we provide transportation at no cost to the voter who's interested in voting according to our democratic plan that we lay out. We also do a mailing of a ballot that we send out to 30,000 to 40,000 individuals. And from that mailing, those individuals will take our phone number from the ballot, give us a call, and tell us if they're interested in going to the polls. And that's how we're able to get people activated and motivated and excited about voting democratically.
Well, tell us some ways that you educate our community on the Democratic Party.
In terms of education?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we have a meeting every month. And what we're trying to do is to have young people get involved in the political process. It is so much apathy out here until it's just unreal. So what we try to do is to introduce politics to them, to show them that every aspect of your life is touched by politics. So in order to change the situation, you have to get involved. So we meet on a monthly basis, especially during the election cycle, when we have to meet to talk about the candidates that we plan to support. I brought along with me a set of ballots. In this last election cycle, we had, I would say, a 98% success ratio in terms of people that we endorsed, that I'll leave with you so you'll understand the process. Whereas we select individuals, we work with their campaigns, we put them on a ballot, and that ballot goes out to more than 100,000 voters in the city. So it has a major outcome and a major impact on who gets elected in Shelby County.
Well, Mr. Folk, you promote education on many topics, such as gun rights. How are you educating the students at the U of M?
So basically, when it comes to gun rights, free market principles, and other issues that it comes to, I mean, I think having interesting speakers is one good way. People who are well versed in a specific topic. So if it is something like gun rights, we may want to have like an NRA speaker, or we may want to have maybe someone who understands the constitutional amendment, the right to bear arms. So we want to have a message that really appeals to students. So there's different approaches at how you can promote issues of free trade and gun rights and these other topics. But basically we want to have a speaker that can really connect with students. And so when students feel like that they're not just being talked to, but people are talking with them and exploring new ideas, that's how you get student engagement, and then they, soon enough find out that, wow, I really align with these values, and this is, this is the way I may want to vote in the future. These are people I may want to be associated with, or maybe they can find a potential career opportunity in politics. Basically, we just want to reach out to students, and our main goal is to create an alternative dialogue on campus for conservative students. So,
well, with the big election coming up, how are you exposing students to it?
Well, that's a very good question. So what we're doing is we've had debate nights. Actually, we've had one, and that was hosted, I believe, by SGA. And so we were invited to bring our club out, and the College Democrats were also, invited to bring their club out. And so what we want to do is we want to show students what the election process is about, and how they can get engaged and how they can vote. And so there have been efforts on campus to, like student registration drives and that kind of thing, and really just bringing awareness to the issues. I know, I think one of our speakers are going to actually talk about, give us an election briefing soon enough. So basically we want to put focus on the election and kind of get students enthused about the election, because it's true. I mean, there's a lot of, both of the candidates have been quite controversial. So basically, we want to build bridges between, these students and our organization.
Well, let's talk about the previous debate. Donald Trump did not do as well as he should have. What do you think he needs to do for the next debate, which is in a few days?
Yeah, I thought Donald Trump actually made excellent points. I really, unfortunately, this is what I've said before, is he actually said a lot of what the ugly truth is. There are issues that may be hard to hear, or maybe he could present them in a different way. But his voting base really loves his outgoing personality and his bold and frankness about issues, and that's why he's appealing, and that's why he's consistently won, these rounds of elections. But basically what I would like to see from him is him to go more in depth of policy issues, and kind of explain how he wants to, tackle a certain area, and kind of explain it more and go, more in depth with that. So.
Now, when you speak about our national politicians, speaking of Donald Trump, in my opinion, he's way over the top. More specifically, part of his taxes were revealed. In 1985, he had a $915 million loss. And this is information that we feel like the general public should know about. And at this point in time, it's out now, and I think the truth will be revealed. And I think Hillary Clinton will do an outstanding job. As a matter of fact, I'm going to predict on this show that she will be the next president of the United States.
Well, I might want to, also add into that is, another thing is if bringing up Trump's tax issues, well, the Republicans, and not even just Republicans, I think what Americans are entitled to know is what's going on with Clinton's emails. Why has she not been more clear with this issue? Why have her under, when she's given her testimonies, why has it been proven that some of these emails were classified and some of them were problematic? I mean, that's basically what I think Americans are entitled to know, let alone, I mean, I agree, I think Trump should probably release his taxes.
He should release taxes, but I think we've exhausted the email situation, and I think people across America are very comfortable at this point with the explanation that she's provided, and at this point, in a few days, we're going to let the nation decide.
I'm sorry. Obviously, the nation will make a decision on November 8th. Thank you both for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Coming up, they may not be able to vote just yet, but high schoolers are already paying attention to the election. How Germantown High School is taking this one step further. Stick around.
Welcome to Germantown High School, an international baccalaureate creative and performing arts optional school, a destination school for students who are going places.
Our students are of the highest caliber when it comes to their academics and knowledge.
The IB program is a very rigorous program.
You were challenged in a way that you thought you couldn't be challenged. You succeeded, something that other kids may not have thought they could do.
They're accepted to colleges that are just, dream colleges for so many people.
Germantown High School offers a CAPA program, the Creative and Performing Arts program.
When I first came here, I saw the television studio and I was just amazed at what all I saw.
Kids do everything, that they're taught every detail that has to do with theater arts and creative arts.
I love a lot of things about Germantown High School, but primarily what I love is the athletics. There's something exciting around every single corner.
We probably are one of the most diverse high schools in the state of Tennessee, maybe the United States.
I would never doubt about sending your child to Germantown High School.
This high school is something not like any other high school that we have.
There's definitely fun in the work. We find fun in everything we do.
You're watching the award-winning GHS-TV, a nationally recognized student television station.
Welcome back to this week's edition of Crosstalk. I'm your host, Sara Mayers. If you're just tuning in, we are discussing the upcoming presidential election at Germantown High School. Several departments are taking a hands-on approach when teaching students about the election process, including GHS-TV. Before we get to our next guest, here is a look back at Election Night 2014.
Live from the campus of Germantown High School, it's GHS-TV's award-winning coverage of Election Night 2014.
Hello and welcome to GHS-TV's award-winning coverage of Election Night 2014. I'm your moderator, Sydney Armstrong, coming to you live from the campus of Germantown High School. I'll be joined tonight by 5 student anchors covering the local, state, and national elections.
Well, let's start off tonight's Senate results with the state of Kentucky. NBCNews.com reports that in Kentucky, with 54% of the votes in, Democrat Allison
WMC-TV Action News 5 is saying that in the Germantown mayoral race, with 0% of the votes in right now.
I understand that there are 2 races in the state of Tennessee that are on the edge of turning blue. What can you tell us about that?
Well, as you can see, I just read
right here in Shelby County, where there's a special election for the state senate, Sarah Kyle, who's running on a very
Of the millions of Americans who went to the polls this year, many were casting a ballot for the very first
Talking to the voters here today, it was clear that there were many factors that brought them to the polls.
It's hard to believe, but another night of election night coverage is coming to an end. It took months of preparation and quite a few late nights in the studio to make this show a reality.
Mallory Kenny with GHS-TV and Lauren Taylor, a U.S. history teacher at GHS, join us now. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
My pleasure.
Ms. Kenny, we do a live show for election night here at GHS-TV. Tell us about the big night.
Well, the big night is just a huge process that starts like a month, 2 months before. The students start researching all the candidates. They have different races that they cover: presidential, U.S. House, U.S. Senate, all the way down to local races. And so we're doing 2 hours this year, and they'll be covering the race results as they come in.
Well, tell us about the night of, like what happens.
So the night of is just, it's so exciting. I'm really excited for the students to get to experience it. It's fast-paced. Again, they're getting election results as they come in, and they're presenting them to the public. And hopefully, you know, they're presenting them in a way that is different from what you would see on the local networks or the cable networks.
Well, preparing students for such a big task is not easy. How are you handling that?
We actually started preparation over the summer. We had election night meetings every week where we discussed what was going on in the presidential primaries, what was going on in U.S. Senate races, U.S. House races. So the work started over the summer, and now we're just kind of fine-tuning it with the anchors and producers that we selected.
Well, all news channels do election night coverage. What made GHS-TV want to jump into the game?
Well, we've been doing this since 1982, and one of the reasons we wanted to get into the game, so to speak, was to provide Germantown kind of a hyper-local election results. We went by precinct, doing exit polling to give Germantown residents results that reflected what their neighbors and their friends were voting.
Well, there's sometimes up to 6 student anchors on the show. How do you pick the positions?
The process for that began over the summer. We did anchor auditions, and from there we chose which ones we wanted on set.
Well, being in high school, students are just now figuring out where they stand on certain topics in life. How are you making sure that they're not biased when they go for election night coverage?
I really have them look at both sides of the issue, just the facts. When we discuss different topics, I make sure that if they're kind of leaning towards one way, I play devil's advocate, and I try to bring up different things that maybe they didn't think about.
Well, walk us through the election night process for the whole 2 hours. It's a long show.
Yeah, so we have data people who are looking at websites constantly and entering the data that they find, whether it's CNN projecting Trump or Hillary is going to win one state. That's inputted into our graphics system, and that information is given to the anchor like right before they start talking on set. So it is up to date, it is real time, and it's going to be a really exciting night.
Well, you said that we started doing the election night coverage in the 80s. How do you think it's evolved over the years?
Just the process that we go through and how we get the election results has changed dramatically thanks to the internet and computers and all that. So it's really fast paced. It's, like I said, it's up to date. And I just think with all the new graphics, it's just a great, great night to be part of GHS-TV.
Ms. Taylor, with the election coming up, how would you say you're getting your students involved?
Well, it's very difficult to cover the current day election because, especially as a U.S. history teacher, it doesn't fit directly into the curriculum that I teach. But we do cover all kinds of historical elections from about 1876 to 1968. So every time we get to an election, kids are learning about the electoral process and how different factors will influence the outcome of different elections. And it's all very applicable to what is happening today.
Well, many of your students can't vote yet. Why would you say it's important that they still know what's going on?
Oh, because they're going to vote in just a couple of years. They have to be prepared now because when they turn 18, they're going to be voting perhaps in a midterm election or in 4 more years in a presidential election. And we are laying the foundation as high school teachers for how they're going to get involved in their adult lives.
Well, picking a party that you support is not an easy decision. What are you doing so your students know about the Democratic and the Republican Party or the other parties?
Well, it's actually a really interesting thing that we get to do in a history class because they get to see how the parties have evolved and what they used to believe in versus what they believe in now. And kids will just immediately begin to align with one side or the other. And it's interesting to see how when we talk about an issue in the early 1900s, they maybe align with the Republican Party, but then when we talk about an issue in the 1960s, they suddenly align with the Democratic Party. So it's interesting to see how they will change throughout historical elections and how they will basically allow their values to align in how the parties are currently.
How would you say your students are reacting to the current election? It's not a usual one.
It's not a usual one, and I think they're reacting in the same way everybody else is because they're getting feedback from their parents and from other adults in their life, and so they're just reflecting a lot of the same frustrations and concerns that everybody else has.
Would you say that they're interested in it?
Oh, absolutely. Probably more so than I've ever seen kids be interested in an election before.
Well, Ms. Kenny, you were actually a student here at GHS not too long ago. How has it changed since you were here?
Well, like I said, going back to the technology, when I was here, you know, internet was just starting to be used for election night results. So now, since it's faster paced, we get election results right off the bat. We don't really have to do exit polling anymore. So really, the technology that we use to gather our information is what's changed the most over the years.
Well, thank you both for being on the show today and talking about how you're getting students involved with the election. I think it's safe to say, no matter who wins in a few weeks, the 2016 presidential election will go down in the history books as one of the most memorable for a number of reasons. And whether you like the candidates, it's important your voice gets heard at the voting booth. Remember, Crosstalk can be seen each week at 9:30 a.m. and 7 p.m. on Mondays and Thursdays, and 12:30 p.m. and 7 p.m. on Sundays. For more information on our programming, please check us out on the web at GHS-TV.org, where we are streaming live 24 hours a day. You can also check us out on Facebook and Twitter. I'm Sara Mayers, and from all of us at GHS-TV, thank you for watching Crosstalk, and hope to see you again.